So thank you everyone for waiting. My name is Charlene, and I will start the meeting today. And I have many colleagues here who will help me out throughout the presentation. 大家好，欢迎来到今天的讲座。然后我也有很多的其他的同事，待会会跟我一起就是做这个讲座。So welcome to this Everyday Law series on family law hosted by Chimo in collaboration with the Amici Curie Friendship Society. 欢迎来到今天关于家庭法的日常法律讲座系列。这个讲座是 Chimo 还有法庭之友合作一起举办的。Amici Curie Friendship Society can be abbreviated as AC, so that's how we refer to ourselves in this presentation. 法庭之友的英文简称是 AC， 所以如果在今天讲座中你听到 AC 的话，就是指我们这个机构法庭之友。Before we officially start the meeting today or the content presentation today, I just want to briefly mention why AC provides free public lectures such as this one. We want to address the barriers in access to justice, and that's why we have volunteers who look like much of our audience and who can speak like them, who can listen to them with empathy. 在正式开始今天的内容之前，我想简单的说明为什么 AC 要提供像今天这样的免费公开讲座。我们知道有很多阻碍诉诸司法的因素，很多人不只是语言上有不方便，例如不了解英文。律师和法院常常都看起来非常的可怕，阻止很多人获得他们所需的法律帮助和信息。所以在 AC 我们尽力提供让我们观众语言的熟悉的语言还有服务的讲座。像今天我们也大多数就是尽量使用亚裔的志工来帮助各位，尽可能的提供一个熟悉的环境。So again, my name is Charlene, and it's very nice to meet you all. I will be your English presenter today. And yes, 现在开始正式的跟大家问好。我的英文名字是 Charlene， 然后也可以称呼我为蔡小姐。很荣幸我是今天的英文的主讲人。My colleague Amy is here on our Zoom screen, and she will translate everything that I say in the presentation to Mandarin Chinese. 我的同事葛小姐今天是使用视讯的方式跟我们就是连线。然后他会帮我把我今天所讲的内容，在我说完之后做中文翻译。Amy, do you want to say hi?
Hi everyone. 我今天会尽量把蔡小姐说的话翻译成中文。我的国语不是最强的时候，我会尽量，要是有什么说不清楚的话，就是跟我提醒一下，那我可以重复一下我说的话。谢谢大家。
Thanks, Amy.
Charlene, you're muted.
Sorry. We're also very honored to have Rena Chen. She's a family law lawyer today joining us, and she will answer your questions at the very end of the question and answer segment. 今天很荣幸的邀请到 Rena Chen 陈律师来参加我们的讲座。她今天也是在 Zoom 上面，但是她会在最后的时间回答大家所有的问题。我们会有一个问题时间在最后，那时候你就可以提问这样子。Okay, and we also have moderators Helen Lee, who is here with us in person, and Happen Liu, who is on Zoom. 李小姐还有在线上的Happen 刘小姐是我们问题时间的时候的主持人。Do you want to say hi, Helen? Hi. Happen, do you want to say hi to our audience on Zoom?
Hi, my name is Happen. 我是吕小姐。And for those of you who are on Zoom, as the presenters are making presentation, feel free to ask questions in the chat box, and I will direct those questions to our presenters in the Q&A session. 在 Zoom 上参加的各位，如果你们有什么问题的话，可以就是在底下的这个 chat 这个功能里面提问，然后我把这些问题最后会整理好给我们的演讲者。谢谢。
Okay, thank you, Happen. So if you have any questions in person, please hold on to them and save them at the very end when Helen will facilitate the Q&A section. If you're online and if you have a question, please, like Helen said, type it into the Zoom chat box and we will make sure to answer at the very end. 现场的观众，如果你有问题的话，最后 Helen 小姐会就是让你有时间就是来提问，然后我们的陈律师就在最后会回答。如果您是线上的观众，请把你的问题放在 Zoom 的聊天框，Happy 最后会把那些问题记录起来，然后也是我们一起回答在最后。So if you signed up online, you should have received an email with the link to today's Zoom and also the slide deck that we'll use today. If you didn't receive the slides and you want the slides, please also message Happen. 如果你是有网上注册这个讲座的话，我们在发给你 Zoom 连结的 email 里面有今天的幻灯片。如果你没有收到，还有想要今天使用的幻灯片的话，可以跟李小姐说，我们可以在最后再传给你。In terms of the schedule for tonight, Amy and I will provide an overview of family law until about 7 p.m. We will have future presentations that delve into everything in more detail, so stay tuned. From 7 to 7:30 today, that'll be our Q&A section. Our volunteers, Annika, who is in person with us today, and Fanny on Zoom, can help people sign up for AC services if you want help with filling out your legal forms. 今天晚上的流程就是从现在到7点，我和葛小姐会就是大方向的跟大家介绍卑诗省的家庭法，以后我们还会有更多的讲座，更详细讲解家庭法。今天是比较大方向的方式去说明，然后从7点到7点半，大家可以就是发问，然后在问题时间的时候，如果你想要继续使用，就是说以后继续使用我们的服务的话 ，AC 可以帮助你填写你的法庭表格。如果需要这种服务的话，也可以找就是现场的话可以找 Annika 来报名，就是坐在那边的那位。然后线上的话可以找 Fanny， 就是Fanny 可以帮你报名以后我们的服务。Now I'd like to invite Helen to start our presentation today. 所以现在我想请李小姐来帮我们开始今天的讲座。
Okay. So we would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of Muslims, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. 我们承认我们位于 Musqueam, Squamish 和 Tsleil-Waututh 民族的传统、早权和每个样的领地上。We'll pass the presentation to Charlene. 我们现在开始我们今天的讲座。
So today's presentation will be a very general overview of family law. We'll talk first about how to get a divorce, issues related to children, which include child support and parenting arrangement. And we'll also talk about what spousal support is and how property is divided under our laws. And finally, we'll also talk about some urgent matters that the courts can help you with.
今天的演讲是关于家庭法的一个非常概括的介绍。我们将会讲到如何离婚，关于孩子的事项，包括抚养费和抚养权的安排。我们将会讲到什么是配偶赡养费，如何在 BC 省法律下适当的分割财产，以及其他法院可以帮助的紧急事项。
One important concept in family law is what is a spouse? So the definition of a spouse. Because only spouses can make claims regarding spousal support and property division.
家庭法中的一个重要概念是配偶的定义，因为只有配偶可以请求配偶赡养费和财产分割。
So who can be spouses? So if you're married, you are automatically spouses. But even if you're not married, you can be spouses if you've lived together in a marriage-like relationship for more than 2 years, or you've lived together for less than 2 years, but you have a child together.
所以谁是配偶？配偶的定义是：第一，如果您已经结婚，您和您的先生或者太太就是配偶。或者如果您没有结婚，但是以类婚姻的关系共同居住2年以上即可合格成为配偶。 或者如果您共同居住不满2年，但有共同的孩子，你们也成为配偶。
So next we'll talk about how to get a divorce in BC. To get a divorce in BC, you have to apply to the Supreme Court of BC, and your reason for divorce must be one of the three.
下一个我们会讨论的是离婚的条件。要在 BC 省离婚，您需要向 BC 省最高法院申请，并且您离婚的原因必须是以下3者之一。
So the first is if you and your spouse have been living separate and apart for at least 1 year.
第一个是您和您的配偶已经分开居住满1年。
Or your spouse has committed adultery.
或者您的配偶有外遇。
Or if your spouse has treated you with cruelty.
或者您的配偶以残酷的方式对待您。
However, the latter 2 reasons of adultery and cruelty are rarely ever used. The vast majority of applications for divorce base the divorce application on a reason that they've lived separate and apart for more than at least 1 year.
但是后面2个理由很少使用，绝大多数离婚申请人基于分居满1年的理由申请离婚。
When you apply for a divorce in BC, you and your spouse need to have lived in BC for at least 1 year immediately preceding the application. This can be waived by the court if it makes sense for BC to still take your application. So for example, if it looks like either of the spouses plan on staying in BC for long term, then maybe a BC court will be willing to make a decision on your divorce.
当您在 BC 省申请离婚时，您和您的配偶需要在提交申请时已经在 BC 省居住满1年。如果法院认为有理由管辖及至少一方配偶计划长期居住在 BC 省，法院可以放弃这项条件。
And next, we'll talk about other issues related to divorce and separation. The court often wants to see these related issues dealt with prior granting you a divorce. The Divorce Act requires that the court be satisfied that there's a reasonable arrangement for the support of any child of the marriage prior to the court granting a divorce.
下一个我们会讨论关于离婚和分居的事项。法院常常要在看到这些事项已经解决后才会批准离婚。离婚法案要求法院看到抚养孩子的合理安排后再批准离婚。
It's also cheaper to resolve issues outside of court, and therefore many people draft up a separation agreement to deal with these issues before finally applying for a divorce.
在法院之外解决问题会比较便宜，因此很多人会在最终申请离婚前签订一份分居协议来处理这些事项。
There's also a limitation period. So you have 2 years from the date of your divorce to bring any claim against the other person related to spousal support and property division. If you're a spouses, not because you're married though, but because you've lived together for more than 2 years, then you have 2 years from the date of your separation to bring any claim against the other person for spousal support and for property.
一个要注意的事项是诉讼时效。自离婚起算，你有2年时间请求法院要求对方支付配偶赡养费和分割财产。如果您是因为同居满2年而成为配偶，则上述2年期间自分居时起算。
Okay, so next we can talk about children. Generally, both parents would be guardians, and only guardians can have parental responsibilities and parenting time.
我们现在要讨论到孩子，通常家长双方都是监护人，只有监护人有监护义务和抚养时间。
And there's no law requiring that the kids spend a certain amount of time with each parent. But the law requires that any decision made by the courts or by the parents are to be made in the best interest of the children.
法律没有要求孩子花费多少时间与每一家长在一起，但是法律要求家长和法院所做的任何关系孩子的决定必须满足孩子的最佳利益。
The parents can make a separation agreement and decide on how much parenting time each person has with the children. When the courts make an order about parenting time, it will look at the history of the childcare in the past, the relationship of the children with each parent, any history of family violence, and etc., to make sure that the order is in the children's best interest. The court also likes to keep the status quo, unless changing it would be in the best interest of the children.
家长可以签订分居协议，以决定每一位家长与孩子相处的抚养时间。当法院作出关于抚养时间的命令时，法院会考虑过去照顾孩子的历史、孩子与每一家长的关系、家庭暴力的历史等，以确保法院命令符合孩子的最佳利益。法院也喜欢维持现状，除非改变现状更有利于孩子的最佳利益。
Parents are required to pay child support for their children after separation until the children turn 19. Sometimes when the children go to university or because of other reasons such as disability, the parents are required to pay for more years when the children are still dependent financially on their parents. The federal child support guidelines determines the amount of child support depending on how much parenting time the parents are getting with the children and how much income each parent makes.
家长必须在分居后为孩子支付抚养费，直到孩子满19岁。有时当孩子上大学时，或有残疾等其他原因时，家长需要支付额外年限的抚养费。联邦抚养费指南根据每一家长与孩子相处的时间及每一家长的收入，决定抚养费的金额。
And so next is spousal support. Remember how child support is mandatory? Spousal support is not triggered automatically on separation, and it is not mandatory.
我们下一个会讨论的是配偶赡养费。记得抚养费是强制的吗？在分居时，配偶赡养费不会自动产生，并且配偶赡养费也不是强制的。
You can be entitled to spousal support on 3 grounds.
你可以基于3种原因有资格获得配偶赡养费。
The first is if you sacrificed your career or income during the relationship, then you may be entitled under the compensatory ground.
第一个是，如果您在关系存续期间牺牲了自己的职业或收入，您可以因为补偿原因获得配偶赡养费。
Another reason would be if there's a significant financial disparity between the spouses after their separation, then this would be a need-based ground for spousal support.
第二个是，有些人可以因为经济需求原因获得配偶赡养费，比如如果配偶的财产与状况存在明显不平等。
You can also be entitled to spousal support if you made an agreement entitling or disentitling one of the spouses from spousal support. So people can address spousal support in separation agreements.
如果您签订了协议，赋予或剥夺一方或双方获得配偶赡养费的权利，可以在分居协议中安排此事。
The quantum or how much you get and duration, how long you receive spousal support for, will depend on the specific facts of your relationship. There's a spousal support advisory guideline from the government that can provide a range of the quantum depending on how long the relationship was and how much each party earns and whether there are children.
金额你获得多少钱和期限，您在多长时间内获得配偶赡养费，取决于你关系的具体情况，但是有一份政府限定的配偶赡养费建议指南，可以根据关系存续的时间、每一方的收入以及他们是否有孩子，提供金额的范围。
So next we'll talk about property division. There's family property and family debt and excluded property and excluded debt.
我们下一个讨论的是财产分割。财产分割有分家庭财产和家庭债务，还有个人财产和个人债务。
Family property is any property that's acquired by either spouse during the relationship, regardless whose name the property is in.
家庭财产是指在关系存续期间，任何一方获得的任何财产，无论财产在谁名下。
The period of the relationship is from the date of cohabitation to the date of separation.
关系存续期间是指同居开始的日期到分居的日期。
And same goes with family debt.
家庭债务同理，
Family property and family debt gets divided equally between the spouses upon separation.
家庭财产和家庭债务在配偶分居时平分。
Excluded property is property that does not get divided upon separation, and same with excluded debt.
个人财产是分居时不分割的财产，个人债务同理。
The four main categories of excluded property are
4种重要的个人财产是
property acquired prior to the relationship,
关系开始前获得的财产，
gifts from third parties,
第三方赠予的财产，
inheritance,
继承的财产，
personal injury damages, and money paid from certain insurance policies.
人身伤害赔偿。
If you're in court and one party is claiming exclusion, that party needs to prove the exclusion, and most commonly with documentation.
如果一方在法院主张了个人财产，这一方需要提供证明，最常见的方式是用文件证明。
Exclusion can also be lost if the excluded property is put into family property. For example, if using family property if using inheritance money, which is excluded to buy a home in joint names, you can lose that excluded status.
如果个人财产被投入家庭财产，例如用继承的钱购买共用房产，就可能失去个人财产的状态。
Also, the increase in value of excluded property is family property.
此外，个人财产的增值部分都是家庭财产。
Okay, so next we'll talk about urgent matters that the court can help you with. So if you have urgent matters, you can apply to the court for orders such as the following.
您如果有相关家庭法的紧急事项，可以向法庭申请相关的命令，包括以下。
There's protection orders,
保护令、
orders preventing the removal of a child from the jurisdiction,
禁止把孩子搬离管辖区的命令、
there's conduct orders,
行为命令、
orders giving exclusive occupancy to one spouse,
排他占有家庭住所或使用住所中的家庭财产，
and orders restraining the disposition or dissipation of property.
限制处置和耗散财产的命令。
So I'll first start by talking about protection orders. Protection orders are to protect family members from family violence that's done by another family member. Family violence includes psychological or emotional abuse and financial abuse, and any direct or indirect exposure of any child of the family to that family violence.
我们第一个会讨论的是保护令。保护令可以保护一方免受另一家庭成员的家庭暴力。家庭暴力包括心理或感情上的虐待、财务虐待，以及直接或间接将孩子暴露于家庭暴力。
The order can restrain or limit communication and contact from the abuser and other conditions that provide safety to the family member.
命令可以禁止或限制来自虐待者的通信和联系，以及其他条件，以保证家庭成员的安全。
This order is enforceable under the criminal code, and a breach is a criminal offense.
可以根据刑法典强制执行，违反保护令是犯罪行为。
And another order the court can make is to prevent the removal of a child from the jurisdiction. The court can make a non-removal order to prohibit the removal of a child from a specified geographic area.
另一个法庭可以给的命令是禁止把孩子搬离管辖区。法院可以下禁止搬离令，来禁止将孩子从特定地区带走。
And there's also conduct orders. The court can make conduct orders to regulate the behaviors of the parties to facilitate the settlement of the legal issues.
还有行为命令，可以命令一方或双方做一些或者必要做一些行为，以方便促进解决法律争议。
There's also exclusive occupancy orders. These are only available at the Supreme Court of British Columbia, not at the provincial court. This order seeks the exclusive occupation of family residence by one spouse, or the use of property stored there exclusively just used by one spouse. The test for obtaining this order is to show the court that sharing the family residence is a practical impossibility and that you are the preferred occupant of the residence.
还有排他占有，这个命令只有在 BC 省最高法院可以申请，在省法院无法申请。一方配偶排他占有家庭住所或使用住所中的家庭财产，申请条件是您必须证明你们实际上无法分享住所，和你有更好的理由留在你们的住所。
And last but not least, we have restraining orders restraining the disposition or dissipation of the property. There are different ways to prevent property from being disposed, dissipated, encumbered, or sold pending the settlement or trial of your family matter. The property that can be dealt with under this order includes not only real property, but also personal property.
保存财产有不同的方法可以禁止财产在等特和解或 Sorry, Charlene, I can't really see this clearly. Or
I can do it as well.
Okay, thanks.
所以保全财产的命令有不同的方法可以阻止财产在等待和解或者是审判的时间被另外一方擅自的处置或者是消散或是抵押或者出售。财产这里所指的财产不只包括不动产，也包括个人财产。So you can deal with your family law issues in either the provincial court or Supreme Court. But as we've sort of mentioned a couple of times, only the Supreme Court can deal with certain issues such as granting the divorce, and the provincial court doesn't deal with property issues.
你可以在省法院或最高法院处理家庭法事务，只有最高法院可以批准离婚，并且省法院不处理财产事务。
So that is the content of our presentation today. I just want to say that I just kind of want to explain a little bit more about our services, and then we can start the Q&A section. So AC's free service in Mandarin and Cantonese are available virtually online on Thursdays. And we have in-person service in Vancouver at 312 Main Street every last Thursday of the month. So once a month, we have in-person service at 312 Main Street. And also every second Wednesday of the month, we have in-person service at Chimo. So the upcoming dates at Chimo are April 13th, May 11th, and June 8th. So so again, our services is that we can provide help with filling out your legal forms if you have court applications or court things coming up and you need help filling out your forms. That's what we're here to help with. To get an appointment, please see either of our volunteers. We have Fanny in the Zoom, I believe. Fanny, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you can send a message in the group chat, and then Fanny can help you make an appointment if you're online. 在周四呢，每个周四我们 AC 有免费的服务，可以用国语或者是粤语，有志工可以帮忙你们。然后我们的服务主要就是帮助你们可以填写你们的法律表格。假如你要上法庭，然后有一些资料要填的话，你们可以跟我们做一个预约，然后我们每周四网络上可以帮助你们。然后每个月最后一个星期四，我们会线下真人在312 Main Street 有线下的服务。如果你想要真人的跟我们的志工得到服务的话，那我们是每个月最后一个礼拜四会在312 Main Street 有服务。然后或者你想要在这里 Chimo 得到我们的服务的话，我们是每个月的第2个礼拜三会在这里。那我们下几次的在这边的时候是4月13、5月11还有6月8号。如果想要预约我们的服务的话呢，可以找Annika， 就是坐在门口的或者是待会找李小姐也可以，找我们都可以，之后。然后如果你有需要为您的法庭宣誓书做宣誓，我们也可以在提供线下服务的时候帮你做宣誓。So at the in-person services, if you have any affidavits that you need to swear, you can come in to our in-person services to get them sworn. Again, if you want to make appointments, you can message in the group chat, and Fanny will be the person helping you. Okay, let me just... And lastly, before the Q&A, if you found our presentation helpful today, please consider giving a tax-deductible donation to the link here, or you can just point your phone camera to this QR code and it'll bring you to the donation link website. 如果您觉得我们今天的讲座有帮助，可以考虑使用这个连结，或者是把你的手机的那个照相机头对准我们这个扫描这个2维码，也可以到我们捐款的网站，可以提供捐款给我们这样子。好，那接下来我们的问题时间。So now is our Q&A section. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so we can see everyone. Oh. Can still see this and close this. Okay, so happened, that's the one question we got, right? Okay, thanks.
There are 2 questions, yeah.
Rena, are you in the chat?
Yes, I'm right here.
Awesome. So again, thank you very much, Rena, for being here. 谢谢我们的陈律师今天拨空参加我们的讲座。然后，所以我们现在的问题actually 这个一个问题离婚的时候没有要求赡养费，之后还可以要求吗？ So can I ask for spousal support after divorce if I didn't apply at the time of divorce?
所以 在这个讲座开始的sorry, I think I was supposed to do it in English, right, Charlene? Oh, you're muted.
You can do both. You can do both.
OK， 所以呢，在讲座开始的时候，你们可能听到，Charlene 解释的就是得到离婚证明以后的话，有一个2年的时间限制的话就开始了。所以呢，你离婚下令批下来了以后的话，你要是在这2年之内的话没有申请赡养费的话，那2年过了以后的话，你就是时间失效了以后的话，你就没有办法来做这个申请了。但是呢，你要是在这2年之内的话，那肯定是没有问题。那有些人的话，比如说分居了，但一直就没有去申请离婚，可能5年以后都没有去申请离婚，那你一直是有这个权利去申请赡养费的。
Would you mind doing it in English as well?
Oh yes. So
thank you so much.
So at the time of divorce, if you didn't I can't recall exactly what I said, but at the very beginning of the presentation, you may have heard Charlene mention limitation period. Well, from when you actually get the divorce final order, 2 years after that, the limitation period is triggered. So if you don't bring in a claim for spousal support within that 2-year time frame, then your claim would have been expired or out of time. Of course, some people separate and they never go through the process of applying for a divorce. So your claim could, stay active for a very, very long time.
Thank you very much, Rina.
Do we have any questions from the audience? 现场有没有人有问题可以访问？
What is real property?
The question here is what is real property? 什么是
房产
房产
？Real property 就是在说房产。
Do you want to? Could you explain that in Chinese?
Real property 中文的意思是房产。I don't know how else to explain that.
Okay.
比如说，就有地的这个房产。
Does that answer your question?
Okay. I think we have another question on Zoom.
Can you explain again? I'm not Chinese, so you can explain the question she just asked.
Oh,
Is the real property? Okay.
yeah.
Can you explain the English, please?
Oh, Rina, do you mind? Sorry, we just have someone asking for clarification in English. What is real property?
Real property is property like it's a house or commercial property, something that's actually physically situated on land, as opposed to, for example, like a bank account or investment.
Okay.
It's okay.
So sorry. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have another question here on Zoom. I think we can read from the chat, but I'll just read it out loud. My ex has lost job and want to move our 18-year-old out of the city with him. There's no court order, but my son lives primarily with him. Can I prevent him from removing my son? I'm going to try to translate to Mandarin. 我的前夫或前妻，他没有工作了，然后想要把我们的18岁的孩子跟他一起搬出这个城市。我们没有任何的法院来的命令，但是我的儿子主要是跟他住在一起。我可以有什么方式让他不要把我的儿子从这个城市带走吗
？18岁的孩子呢，大概就是他们已经够年龄可以做自己的决定了。所以要是你儿子的话，想跟着他走，跟你前夫走的话，或者前妻走的话，那大部分是他的决定。那你要是比如说这个问题的话，是一个4岁的孩子，那4岁的孩子的话，你前妻前夫的话，可不可以带走呢？这个就是一个这个就是一个更复杂的问题了。为什么呢？就算这个孩子主要跟你的前夫前妻住的话呢，你还是跟这个孩子有 有家长时间的，对吧？那这就会是一个法庭需要考虑的一个问题。So basically, with an 18-year-old, it's really going to be up to this 18-year-old to decide whether or not he wants to go with the ex. At that point in time, his decision gets a lot of weight. You can't really restrain an 18-year-old from going anywhere or doing anything, really. But if the question was, in fact, what if it was a 4-year-old? Well, then in that case, it would be called a relocation application. And that's where it gets a little bit more complicated, or a lot more complicated, and a court has to take into a number of different factors.
Do you have any questions from the floor? Yes.
Thanks, Rena.
I don't have any kids, but I've got a dog. What happens with my dog?
现场的问题就是说，我们没有小朋友，但是我有一个小狗，那怎么办？
English because they.
Oh, okay. The question here from the audience here is, we don't have kids, but we do have a dog. So what's going to happen when we separate, divorce?
Well, a dog, fur baby, everybody's fur baby. We all love our pets, but unfortunately, in the eyes of our law, pets are property. So then it comes down to whose property this dog is and who gets to keep this property. 所以呢，虽然我们都会很喜欢我们的宠物，在我们家里的话都是很重要的家园，但是呢，在法律的眼里的话，宠物的话是也不能说是财产房产 property， 他们这是需要决定到底是谁的，how do you say property that's not financial or house? 财产。
I think it's probably, oh my god, I'm so sorry. I think because the audio system is just kind of complicated.
Yeah.
Probably still 财产 is the best I can do.
OK， 就是
Yeah.
也是我这种翻译的能力也有限制，所以呢，法庭得决定这到底是谁的财产。那比如说，就像你的一个车的话，这是谁的车，谁可以带走。
Thank you. And I see here in the Zoom chat, there's another question. It's in Chinese, so I'll just read it. 请问下长期同居和结婚区别在哪? What's the difference between long-term cohabitation and being married?
You get a ceremony, you get a ring. There's really no difference. 所以这两个的差别的话，除了可能有办婚礼，花更多钱的话，没有在法律眼里的话，没有太多区别的。唯一的可能就是说，你记住呢，就是在时间限制上面的话，要是你们两个人是同居，那在你们分居开始的话，就是这个2年的时间限制的话，就开始计算了。所以有些时候的话呢，在一起同居的人的话，他们分开了，但分开了以后的话，没有去积极的来解决之间的问题，很容易错过这个2年的时间。结婚了以后的话，是从你们离婚开始算这2年时间的。So while there's really no difference, perhaps something that everybody should be mindful of is the limitation period for people who are in common law relationships. The 2-year limitation period starts ticking down from the date of separation, and it's very, very easy to forget because you separate from someone and you just want to move on from your life, and 2 years later your spousal support and property claims may have run out of time, whereas if you're married, then it's from the date of divorce, right?
陈小姐，这点我想补充一下，如果你想2婚的话，然后你现在还是结婚的话，你必须要离婚，这有一个区别。
Thank you. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. Thank you both, Rina and Oran. So
Yes.
I don't know where my husband is. He just left. How do I start this? What do I do?
So we have a question from in-person audience.
The question is like, we don't know, like, I don't know where my husband is, so how can I start getting a divorce? 现场的问题就是说，假如我不知道我的丈夫或者妻子在哪里，我可以怎么办？
所以在这种情况下的话呢，你要想去申请离婚的话呢，你先得就是说尽力的去找到他。所以呢，比如说，你请一个人去找他，或者找不到的话，你联系他之前的这个邮件、电话，或者呢，你联系你们之前的朋友，联系他的家人，都找不到他的话，你尽力了，那你还是可以去申请离婚的。但在离婚申请的这个程序中的话呢，你会需要请求一个英文叫 substitutional service order， 就是让法庭来批准你可以这个文件，比如说，寄给他的你最后的这个微信联系方法，或者寄给他的 Facebook， 还是寄到哪个地址的话，就足够可以满足这个 service 的要求。service 的要求是递交的要求。So basically, if you can't find him, you can still go and get a divorce, but what you'll have to do in the process is get an order for substitutional service, which essentially is an application where you have to prove that you've taken every step possible to try and find this person, including, for example, contacting his family members or contacting previous friends that might know about his whereabouts, reaching out to his email address, phone number, maybe even getting a process server to try and find him. And if you can prove that you've made your best efforts and he cannot be located or is not willing to be located, then you are allowed to still basically serve the notice of family claim to him in certain ways and proceed with the application.
Thank you. So here, this is a question on the Zoom chat. It says, I'll say in Chinese first. 另外，结婚后如果婚前一个人不工作，一个人收入20万，但是这个人 CRA 报税只有5万，请问赡养费的计算是根据 CRA 的金额呢，还是照该人实际收入金额算呢？ Oh, so I'll translate it in English. So these parties, they got married, and before marriage, one person didn't work and the other person has 200,000. What's the first one?
200,000.
200,000 in income, but this person only reported $50,000 in income with the CRA. So the question is, there's a disparity in the actual income and the reported income. Which income is used to calculate support?
So just to clarify, this is someone who's self-employed, right? Is the question? I can't read Chinese, sorry.
It doesn't say if they're self-employed or not.
所以这个20万的话，20万跟5000块钱的区别，是因为这个人他是自雇吗？还是因为这个人大部分的收入的话是现金工，然后没有正确的报税？
We might need some clarification. Okay, so the person said either. So what about, like, if you can talk about both situations? Thanks, Reen.
Okay. 一个人他要是自雇的话，那肯定是需要用他的真实的收入来计算赡养费了。那真实的收入对一个自雇的人的话呢，通常我们在这个家庭法程序中的话呢，就会请一个专门对他公司第一的一个做评估的专家，但对于他的收入做评估的专家，一般这种专家的话，英文就叫一个 certified business valuator。这个评估做下来了以后的话，一般法庭在作为这个证据的话是有很多的重量的。So for someone who is self-employed, of course, we would be using this person's actual income to calculate spousal support or support in general. And typically what we do in the family law process is get a certified business evaluator to come in and take a look at the value of the business and also what this person's income should be for support purposes. Now, for someone who's self-employed, there's all sorts of ways to how do you say this? There's all sorts of ways to tuck away income in various ways. So it's unrealistic to expect that we can simply use a self-employed person's income tax return for calculating support. These are in general circumstances. 所以对于一个自雇的人的话呢，我们用他的作为自雇的人的话呢，有很多方法可以把，比如说自己的收入的话，变成就是在公司里面可以用别的方法的话写掉，然后跟他的报税收入里面有很大的差距，所以呢，我们要是用他的报税收入是不现实的。So if we're looking at somebody who's earning a lot of cash income and really hasn't been earning or declaring proper income on her tax returns, in those situations becomes quite tricky. But usually what we do is we start by looking at full financial disclosure. We look at this person's spending, we look at this person's all of her monthly bank account statements, we look at her lifestyle. So this is looking at the general picture, right? And so at the end of the day, courts have to, it's a court's duty to decide, well, what do I think this person's actual income is? And they could impute income to this person. So for example, if you're driving around in a luxury vehicle and you've got a giant house, but you're only earning $5,000 a year, I think it's unrealistic to expect that a court will not impute income to you. 所以对于这个现金收入的这个情况的话，要是一个人他有很多的现金收入，然后报税的话报得很少，在这种情况下的话，要想到一个法庭可以就是直接用他报税的收入也是不现实的，所以在这种情况下的话呢，我们会看一下总共的经济情况，比如说我们会要求他每个月的这个银行流水单，他的信用卡，他的生活条件，然后总结一下，就是说他的这个可能看他的生活条件的话，他的收入应该是什么？因为在最后情况，比如说要是这个人有一个很好的车，大房子，然后每一年的话只挣5000块钱，一个法庭不可能接受这5000块钱的，他们会就是为这个人定一个收入。
Thank you. Any other questions in person?
这个是跟那个罗兰柔也教我这样子，然后是怎么弄？
I think this is. Should we ask?
So I can just summarize it. So I'll just summarize it.
Okay.
So basically the question is, she signed a very unfair separation agreement 8 years ago, under a lot of pressure from her ex, and in 2 months her ex used the money that he got from that to buy his own condos, so she just wants to ask how to set aside that agreement. 所以有一个人的问题就是，他在8年前就是签了一个他觉得不公平的分居协议书，他的前夫强迫他签的，然后他想要问如何就是向法庭申请让这个分居协议就是无效。
这个问题的话，是一个很复杂的问题，我没有办法就是说在你的情况中呢，给你这种法律建议。所以，但是呢，在就是大方向的来说的话，你第一个需要考虑的就是你的时间限制的话有没有失效？因为你在签完这个协议了以后的话， 等你发现你应该去，比如说这个协议有任何的不公平，或者你应该去申请推翻这个协议的时候，你发现的那天的话有2年的时间限制，所以你时间限制的话，第一是你的第一个这个barrier，第一个需要过的关。So I can't answer this question specifically because I think you really do need to seek legal advice on this. But generally speaking, your first hurdle is thinking about the limitation period, because after you sign this agreement, from the date where you ought to have known when a claim arose, there's a 2-year limitation period that kicks in. 但是呢，就是 generally 来说的话，就是大方向来说的话呢，去想推翻一个协议的话，法庭会考虑4点。就是第一呢，你们在签这个协议的时候有没有经济报告？第二呢，他们会考虑就是说，在签这个协议的时候，两方都是不是有清楚这个协议里面的条件和对他们的影响，然后我们的基本法律。第三的话呢，就是法庭会去考虑，就是说在签这个协议的时候呢，各自一方的话都是不是情愿的去签这个协议，还是有一些情况会造成比如说考虑他们会被逼迫的去签这个协议。在第2和第3个这个考虑中的话呢，同时在做这个协议的时候呢，一般要是你也有一个律师，他也有一个律师，这个律师的话会签一个律师证，然后说明，比如说我在这个情况中呢，在这个事情中他是你的代理律师，我跟你一起过这个协议，我给你解释过这个协议，我就可以确定你明白这个协议里面的内容，然后呢，你在签这个协议的时候是自愿的。第四个就是可能法庭会考虑的这个 factor 里面的话，就是这个协议的话是不是特别的不公平。所以呢，这个就是4个大方向法律会考虑的问题，要是一方去申请推翻一个协议的话。Where was I? So when you go, oh my gosh, I can't remember if I translated in English the part about. Oh, yes. Okay. So generally speaking, if you go and try to set aside an agreement, the courts will look at 4 factors, and that's simply summarized: financial disclosure, whether each party is aware of what they're getting themselves into, and that usually comes by way of independent legal advice, whether each party has signed it willingly, voluntarily, or there was situations that may result in duress or one person being pressured into signing the agreement. The 4th factor that the courts look at is significant unfairness. Basically, whether if they apply the law to your situation, whether they would still come to the same conclusion as this agreement, and the further an agreement departs from what our courts would do, the more unstable and potentially significantly unfair it would be.
Thanks, Rena. Okay, and then we have some online questions, so I'll just go to that. Just kind of alternating. So the person who asked the previous question about the income and not reporting the correct one, they're also wondering, a lot of people do business abroad. How does that income get counted or factor into income? 所以还有一个网上的问题就是，如果有人做很多生意，在海外做生意的话，不是所有的收入都能够在加拿大被证实的话，那怎么样就是真的来决定这个人的收入是多少呢？
Well, in a family law proceedings, it's this person who's earning a lot of money. It's his or her obligation to prove his or her income. So if you have overseas income, the burden, the pressure is on you to provide that information. And if you don't meet that obligation to provide enough evidence, then you put yourself at risk of the courts imputing a different amount to you. 所以对于这个就是申请更多的这一方的话，他要是有海外的收入的话，在家庭法案子里的话，是他的责任要证明自己的收入。要是他没有办法meet this obligation，满足这个要求的话，那有可能我们法庭在法庭程序里面的话，一个法庭会把他的收入定得更高。
Thank you.
Any other questions from the floor?
刚刚立马刚刚说的那些条件，就是说法院考虑那10个不公平。可是我上这个 contract 的时候是非常不公平，他是要掐我脖子，要去签。他说不签的话，而且他是变成我的财产变 zero， 这是非常不公平，而且我也没有经过律师的帮忙，是他去找了文件，然后写下来，然后请2个证人是我的小朋友，一个证人是我的儿子，那时候才15岁，不是立国里当证人，然后另外一个是我女儿24岁，所以这是 totally， 而且我们是处理的 family violence， 他是在多伦多就打我全身的，反正他就是一个暴力的人。然后那个我们后面结婚分居前，我们有3个 property， 他全部卖掉，在分居我们这段分居之后，全部卖到放在他的口袋里面，我 zero 的。所以像这种案子，我是5月3号是会有 JCC， 我需要帮忙是说，因为 family law 在 law 也说，我可以 set up sign 的 code， 我这个不公平的。我不是 volunteer 去 sign 的，我是被强迫的，所以像这样子的案子有点困难，不知道怎么处理。
So basically the questions continues with the from the audience here. Is regarding she's saying that the separation agreement was signed under force and she didn't sign it voluntarily, and also the witness that separation agreement is basically a son that is underage and her 20 years old daughter. Also, there has been family violence involved. So she's just saying, like, there is an upcoming JCC too, and she's wondering how can she kind of like make the separation agreement not enforceable.
还没有离婚，对不对？还没离婚，对不对 ？Okay, and not yet.
And they have not yet divorced. Yeah. 其实现场有一个问题，就是说这位他是被逼迫之下签那个离婚协议的，当时他的未满法律年纪的儿子跟一个22岁的女儿是做那个分居协议的见证人，还有就是他承受过一个家庭的暴力，她丈夫常常都会打她，所以她在5月4号有一个 JCC， 就是一个跟法庭的会议，所以她希望想在哪个时候她怎么可以去推翻这个分居协议。
Hey, Charlene, I caught, bits and pieces of that. I'm just going to jump in and say that this is not the avenue to get into the specifics of what's going on for you personally. In this instance, I would say this lady would really benefit from actually speaking with a lawyer one-on-one. I wouldn't be able to answer a question like this without getting to know her full background. It's just not realistic or...
Mm-hmm. Do you mind relaying that in Mandarin as
well?
Oh,
okay. Okay, sounds good. 我刚才说的呢，就是我没有听到就是详细的这个问题里面的内容，但是呢，这种复杂的情况来说的话，一定要督促你去跟一个律师去就是见面谈话，然后去得到这个对你情况详细的律师建议。为什么呢？因为我们在这种的这个 circumstance 这种的状面来说的话，是没有办法来答复你这个个人的这个情况的 问题，而要是没有 ，yeah。
Thank you. And there's another question here. It's asking she is also on title to the house, but her ex is not letting her in and saying that she's trespassing. Can she get in the house? How does she get into the house? 所以现在有一个问题就是，有一个人他跟他的前一任配偶，就是他们两个人都在房子的房子在他们两个人名下，但是他的前一任说他不能进去，那他要怎么样进去这个房子里？
So again, this is another situation where you really need to be speaking with a lawyer about your specific circumstance, and this is a situation where you need to take a lot of care, because the first question that comes to my mind is, should you be going back to this house at all? Or if you really needed to get back in there, then you should be maybe considering applying for an exclusive occupancy order so that the court can decide who gets to stay in this house. Because if you simply go back there, the police will call, and if there's kids, they're going to be traumatized by this whole experience, and you're just going to be putting yourself in a place of conflict where you don't need to be. 所以在这个情况下的话，我同样的答案呢，就是一定要去跟一个律师谈一下你的情况，而且要在这个情况中的话非常小心，因为在我脑子里面，我可能考虑到第一个问题呢，就是你应该不应该回去，你为什么需要回去？要是比如说你真的需要回到这个房子住的话，你没有别的地方住了，那你在回去之前的话，应该考虑，比如说先可不可以先去法庭申请一个 exclusive occupancy order，就是你一个下令，我不知道怎么翻译，但是呢，就是可以让各自一方的话住在这一个房子里面的下令，就是一个法庭来决定谁可以住在这个房子里面。要是没有这个下令存在的话，也没有任何决定谁可以住到这个房子的话，那你回去了以后的话，只是就是让你自己就是造成更多的冲突。Oh, I see here the clarification is I just want my belongings not to stay. He won't give them to me. 你要是只是 so if you just want your belongings, then what I would suggest you maybe consider is reaching out to him and listing out, this is what I need. Please arrange, a time for pickup. You can have a friend go with you. You can have a friend go on your behalf. You can send somebody to pick it up for you and make that arrangement prior in writing. 所以你要是只是想要你的东西拿回来的话呢，然后他可能住的这个房子里面人不把这些东西还给你，那你可能就是说，我觉得我的建议呢，就是说用书面的方法联系他，然后安排一下时间什么时候可以去取你的东西。但要是他真的是不给你的话，那你就是又是得做法庭下令了。But at the end of the day, if he's really not willing to communicate with you and he won't give you your things and you need them, then you're looking at another court application.
Okay. So we have 15 minutes left before we wrap up for the night, or actually, yeah, 15. So again, if you want to sign up for our services, message, in the chat or message happen privately to let us know. 我们现在剩下15分钟的时间如果你想要跟我们预约的话，就是也可以在这个聊天框里面写就是你想要跟我们预约，然后或者是你在线下的话，你可以找 Annika. If you want to make an appointment with us, you can chat with Annika and we can help set up an appointment for you. We have 15 minutes left, so anytime during the next 15 minutes. Okay, any other questions from our in-person audience right now? Okay. Okay, I'll just keep going. We have questions here. This one is asking if I'm getting married with my girlfriend, how do I know she's had any history of cohabitation or marriage? Can I find that out? Choose to live in different cities in Canada. 我要跟我的女朋友结婚，我可以知道她在加拿大过去有同居历史或是结婚历史吗？之前我们在加拿大不同的城市生活过。Oh, sorry.
So if you're getting married, in my mind, and I don't know who asked this question, and I don't mean any personal offense, but in my mind, you should be able to ask this person and have an honest conversation about whether she's been married before or she's lived with someone before. And if this is not a question that you are not comfortable with asking, I don't know if you're quite there at the step of starting a healthy relationship. So I'll just say that in Chinese. 我不知道就是谁在问这个问题，然后我也不想就是说让就是来 offend 任何人，但是呢，对我来说的话，要是你要准备跟这个人结婚了，你应该是可以就是说来很坦白的来讨论一下，就是他的历史，他有没有之前结过婚，他有没有之前跟别的人同居，要是没有办法来。连这个的话都没有任何信任的话，我觉得这个婚姻可能不是一个特别健康的这个开始。那有可能你要是觉得这个有任何困难的话，我真的督促每个人就是在结婚之前的话，考虑一下，比如说跟一个律师谈一下，结婚了以后的话，这些家庭法出现的问题。那可能更重要的话呢，是督促你跟一个比如说counselor， 就是心理辅导。来，你们两个人可以一起兼这个心理辅导来谈一下这些可能会对你更困难的话题。So something that I really recommend and suggest for everybody who's considering, entering into a serious relationship, getting married, common law relationship, whichever, to talk to a lawyer about what the different issues that arise are, but also, perhaps more importantly, consider working with a counselor to have some of these more difficult conversations, because it's really, if you think about it, marriage is one of the more complicated contracts that an ordinary person can enter into. And if you enter into this kind of contract, it'll affect not only yourselves but also children if you decide to have them. So it's very important to work out these types of conversations prior to getting married.
Okay, thank you so much, Rena. I don't think we have any in-person questions at this moment. Do you have anything you want to add, Rena? Like anything that you think our audience should sort of keep in mind as they sort of like navigate through their family law issues? Some like big takeaway points?
Shari, there's another question in the chat.
There is. Okay, sorry. Do you mind reading? Oh, actually, let me find it.
配偶在国外另组家庭，那个婚姻在加拿大会被承认吗？ So if your ex-partner form another family abroad, is that marriage recognized in Canada?
Okay, 所以就是他在这边的话有一个家庭，然后呢，在海外的话有一个家庭，然后呢是你要跟他现在分居了，对吧？还是你的问题是，要是他在这边有一个关系的话，在海外有关系的话，海外的关系的话是可以是承认的吗？我不懂这个问题的方向是在哪里。
Yeah, I might have mistranslated the question. 我可能翻译的有一些问题，就是您的问题是您的配偶现在你们还没有离婚，是分居 they're separated.
Sorry, what?
They're separated.
Who's separated?
So this person is separated from his their partner, but then their partner formed another family abroad.
Right, and what's the question?
And the question is whether that partner's family is recognized in Canada.
Like I think the new family is in Canada. Like maybe they got married in China and then they were separated there, and then the partner like formed a new family in Canada, and is that recognized? They didn't get a divorce in China.
Well, so this is a really interesting question. I had a call with Vital Statistics. Vital Statistics is the organization that keeps track of you know, who's married, who's not. Well, no, sorry, just who's married. And my question to them was, well, what if a person, like, before you get married, do you take any steps to confirm whether or not this person has been previously married? And their answer was quite frankly no. So really the validity of this marriage, I don't really know how to answer that question. Like if there's no organization then that you can go to search this information up. I don't know if I'm completely missed the question here. I think where I'm stumped on is really what is the issue here?
I guess the issue is like they're still married in China, like they're separated. So her ex is like now in another country, like cohabitating with another person, and they're technically like common law partners. Probably, I don't know. I'm just kind of like, this is how I'm understanding this question. So I guess the issue is like, are they like still recognized? The ex and the ex's new girlfriend, are they recognized as spouses in Canada, even though her ex isn't divorced from her?
Well, I think they would have, if they separate, then the same issues would arise. Right, the same child support, guardianship, spousal support, property issues would arise.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay, so now I'm at a bit of a loss as to how to translate my response, because that was.
So the person who asked the question clarifies that this person who formed a family abroad didn't go through a single status investigation. I'm not sure what is that.
Well, if this person married abroad, then I guess it's whichever jurisdiction she married in, that's their business whether or not they recognize the relationship. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know if this is a productive conversation.
No, that's good. Thanks, Serena. I also don't know how to translate all that, but I guess, wait, is this lagging?
Where's the question?
I don't know. I don't think it's in the chat. Yeah, I think we're lagging. You can probably still hear me.
No. This person sent a question in direct message for, I guess, for privacy reasons. So.
Sorry, we were just jumped out because of connection, but thanks, Rena, for answering that. Happen, was that question in Mandarin as well?
Yes, so this person sent a message to me in direct message, I guess, for a privacy.
Okay.
Concerns.
Yeah. So I guess like, Rena, correct me if I'm wrong, like the short answer would be like if two people, you know, like if they got married somewhere else, the government here, the vital statistics wouldn't know that they were married somewhere else. So like if they cohabitate with someone here and for longer than 2 years, then they would still be spouses and family law will still apply to them, and upon separation, those things will still apply.
Yeah.
So it's not really a matter of recognizing or not, like the law just gets triggered when they're when they become spouses.
Yeah.
Here.
One of the craziest cases I've ever had to deal with was somebody who was in a polyamorous relationship, so continuously at the same time, you know, couple, and then the same man was in another relationship with another wife, and then another wife, and then they all decided to split up around the same time and they all have children with each other, then all the same issues arise out of all of those relationships.
That is pretty crazy. Oh, yeah. Would love to hear more about that one another time. So I guess I can try to translate, or do you want to translate? I can try to translate. You've done so much, Rina, today. So 刚才陈律师就是说，如果有人他们在国外，比如说在中国或是哪里，是结婚然后分居的状态，他们还没有离婚，那其中一个人到加拿大来跟另外一个人同居的话，他们虽然就是加拿大这边的政府不会知道你们在中国或者是在别的地方有结过婚，加拿大政府只知道在自己国家谁结过婚，除非你 I guess like if you like bring in the marriage certificate, but in this case 在你的现在的状况，如果你们在法庭当中没有任何的程序的话，加拿大政府一般来说是不会知道一个人他们在国外有没有结婚过的状况，所以如果他在加拿大跟别人同居的话，2年以上，或者是就是符合配偶的条件的话，就是今天所谈到的这些家庭法的事情，就是也是会适用在他们的身上，他们在这里还是配偶，对，虽然他可能跟你在其他的国家没有正式的离婚，他跟这个另外一个人在这边如果同居长达2年以上的话，在加拿大还是配偶的。Okay, so I don't think we have any other questions, and it is time. So I just want to thank Rina so much for being here today, answering our questions and doing both languages. It's super impressive. 我想谢谢 Rina 陈律师今天在线上帮我们回答这些问题，用英文还有中文真的是很厉害。Yeah, so this is the end of our event today. Again, if you need any help signing up for our services, let us know. And we do have in-person services at Chimo right here every month, every second Wednesday of the month. So yeah, any questions, let us know. But for now, feel free to go, and thank you all for coming.